All right, hi guys, Coach Marc here. Today we're doing an interview with Kate Mascianti. I practiced that like 5 times. And she is going to talk to us about nutrition, and she actually has her own company where she sees clients and gets them on the right track. So before we get started, or as we get started, can you tell us what you would do for a client if they first came in?
So the first thing I do when I meet somebody is the very first thing I do is we sit down and make sure that we would get along, right? So have like that initial consultation meeting, usually out in a public place, coffee shop, wherever someone's comfortable, and just kind of get a feel for each other. And then I give an overall explanation of the kind of the philosophy that I use in the real world, real life scenarios when it comes to nutrition. And then I go through like a summary of, I do body composition, I do basic meal planning, grocery lists, and then just give a summary of cost. And then from that point, then we would say, sometimes it's like, I'll let you think on it and let me know, or if we hit it off right away, we jump in and start scheduling appointments where we would go in and I'd really start investigating what are your eating habits like, what foods do you absolutely dislike that I'm not going to force you to eat, what do you absolutely love that you refuse to give up, those kind of things, and really kind of personalize it for people.
So now I know we talked, and we have a very similar philosophy on like how to work out, how to eat. But let's talk a little bit more about how people get too strict with their diet and they make it too hard for them to actually stick to it because it's not practical for them. It's not fun, right? It has to be kind of fun. You have to be able to experiment and do different things. But we talked a little bit about how do we tell the client, like, this is how I want you to kind of eat or think about food.
So it really comes down to real life. You need to be able to exist out in the real world. You're not going to want to go out with your friends or with your family, and all of a sudden you find you have to be like, oh, I can't eat that, I'm on a diet, and this idea of this like full restriction, unless you have a serious like health or food allergy or intolerance, it really shouldn't come down to the idea of like, I absolutely can't have that, or this all or nothing, like, I either just sit and do nothing and eat anything I want, or it has to be 100% perfect, and it should never be like that. It should be a nice little balance of real life scenarios. And you go through life for the most part kind of doing the right thing, and every once in a while you're like, hey, I think I'm gonna have a piece of cake. Have a piece of cake.
And I think that's really important, because when we're talking about a client, we're talking about longevity, right? And I've seen it, and I've talked to people. I've seen people I know who maybe they want to do a fitness competition. So they diet and exercise a lot, maybe for about 8 to 10 weeks. They do the competition, they look awesome, and then 4 months later, they're actually bigger than they were before, right? And so what that kind of tells me is that nutrition is a skill that what we want to teach somebody. Would I be correct in saying that?
I would say, yeah. And it really comes down to, again, I always fall back on the term balance, and it's really with anything in life to take anything to a really big extreme, unless you do have a target. So I do work with people who maybe they have a competition and they have an end game and they have an end goal that they have to hit. But even coming out of that, you can't just go, it's that whole 0 to 60. You can't just all of a sudden, like, you're eating 100% clean and you're totally shredded and this is great, and then tomorrow have 6 donuts. Like, your body isn't interested in that. So.
And I think that goes to the fact where we talked about if it's not fun and you're doing it and you're all in and you don't stop and it consumes you,
correct,
then eventually you're done with it. Right?
And you're like, forget it.
And I think that's why people who go see you or somebody like you will have more success, because you're working with them to teach them that skill that they can use for the rest of their lives.
And to enjoy life. I think the key thing that what I've kind of gotten from you and how you teach here is you want people to be happy and fun, and going out to dinner and being like, I'll just have a salad and a glass of water. I mean, some people might think that's fun, but most people are like looking at the burger and like,
sometimes you just want the burger.
You just want the burger.
Have
the burger. But have the burger and then get back to business the next day.
Right. And I tell the clients too, like, one of the reasons you're exercising is so you can have that burger if you want to, right? So the exercising, the nutrition, now we don't want to get too silly with it, but if you eat the burger and you want to add on another exercise class that week, that's something that you could do too, right? It just depends on where you're at.